It's always great when Lamar Jackson gives insight and insider information to how he thinks and how he's feeling about the Ravens and his game. But sometimes those words, unfortunately, get twisted, and that is what happened. We talk about Lamar's words getting twisted, as well as if the Ravens and Steelers rivalry is shifting back in the Ravens' favor. All that and more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. Free and available on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and in audio form where you can follow along and subscribe as well. 5 days a week here of Ravens coverage and content, plus some bonus content on the weekends at times, live shows after every single Ravens game, every single piece of Ravens big news, and now the Ravens Squad Show, Mondays and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers will get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And speaking of the Ravens Squad Show, one of the members is here with me today, as he is every single week. It is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail of Missile Training and MissileTraining.com. Gil, can we just get to training camp already? It feels like that this lull period it only really started about a week, 2 weeks ago, but it feels like it's been going on for months. I need football back. We're so close. And when it's so close, it feels like it's so far away at the same time.
I think if you and I are talking about it, it is so far away. But I think if you are an active player, you're sitting there like, man, the grind is about to start up. Let me just pump the brakes on it all. It is a scenario where if you, a franchise, have a good team on paper and the fan base is riled up, it does seem like a long way away. If you're a franchise that has some uncertainty, well, you're like, all right, okay, we could still meet and we can still do some things. I'm sure, the Giants are sitting there like, we're wrestling with who we're going to be at quarterback. And I'm sure the Cleveland Browns are probably sitting there like, dang it, we didn't win the Super Bowl offseason, but mother of pearl, we got 4 quarterbacks, and how this all going to look, and holy moly, like Pittsburgh and Baltimore and Cincinnati, they got better and we did it. So it depends, I think, on what your outlook looks like and how are things going to go moving forward. For us, it's a Super Bowl or bust proposition. So let's get it on. Let's just, we know the Ravens are going to go into training camp. It's going to be a good, strong, strenuous one. We know they're going to come out and they're going to be like loaded to go. We, as a fan base, we're like, yo, let's go right now. Let's just skip the entire season and let's just say, we don't care. Pick a seeding 1 through 4. If we get a home game, great. If we don't, we don't care. We're just going to know this to be true. We represent the AFC in Levi Stadium out in San Fran. End of discussion.
Man, this team right now with the roster that they have, with the talent that they have, Super Bowl or bust is the word. And obviously, the preparation for that begins during spring workouts. It begins during training camp. And you very well know that, being a champion yourself and having to go through that grind of an entire season. It's not just the season that you got to put all your attention to. It is the preparation. And obviously, you know a thing or two about that with Missile Training and MissileTraining.com over there as well. But we know that Lamar Jackson, he's 28 years old. He's going to be 30 by the time next season is over. Not this year, next year, which is still just unbelievable. We know the playoff success, it hasn't been there for Lamar Jackson. And he's opened up on that multiple times. And he went on with Kevin Hart a week, 2 weeks ago. That interview dropped. And he put together a lot of insight. And one of the things he talked about was the most difficult adjustment for him. He talked about being a leader. He said, quote, just being a leader, I'm really not outspoken, like being vocal with my guys, like a motivational speech. I don't have that. I lead by example. I go out there. I'm going to work hard. I expect that out of you. But as I've been growing in the league, it's like, nah, you've got to talk to the guys. He's mentioned how he's now talking to guys one-on-one. And Zay Flowers has talked about how Lamar is going in and trying to pick everybody's brain individually and figuring out the nuances of everything. I mean, we know that Lamar Jackson has shifted and changed as a leader. And I think, to me, you and I have talked about this a lot, where I give Lamar a lot of credit because it is a learning process for a lot of different things. You grow in the league, get older, you get more games under your belt, and you just know the ins and outs of the game. You and I last week talked about the game slowing down for a lot of these guys, and you had your moment of that happening as well. But Lamar is, look, he's not going to be the rah-rah guy. We've talked about that, but you can tell his impact as leader is there and has grown over the course of his time with the Ravens.
One of the things you recognize in the league as you go from year one to however long you can play, as you go, there are guys that are coming up behind you that have not seen and experienced what you have experienced and seen. And so as you continue to get into year 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, man, the more you accumulate, the more experiences you have, the more you recognize that there's a stack of young players that do not have the insights and the little details that you have. And so that's where you will see certain coaches want to have vet teams, and those general managers go out and get those vet type players. Or you'll have teams where they got a young player or young players, but you'll have 1 or 2 key vet guys that can lead by example. And so with that said, I think Lamar, when he first got in, really wasn't a lot that he had to say or do. And clearly, you got a Joe Flacco that's on the team, and, you got other guys that are big name guys that are on the defensive side of the football, and they're taking up space. And he's like, all right, bet. But then I think as it goes, it becomes a scenario where it's like, now I'm the big guy. Now I'm the one that everyone is looking up to. And if you want to win, you're going to have to say to yourself, hey, fellas, come on. Here's how you do things. Here's how we go out and practice. Here's how we go about our business. Coaches, especially in the league, John Harbaugh knows this to be true. His coaching staff knows this to be true. It's the players that dictate the opportunity to be successful. The coaches create an environment, but it's the players that cultivate that environment and make it work. Once you get out there on the football field, holding each other accountable, and then for Lamar Jackson aspect of things, if it is talking to 1 or 2 key players that he feels needs to step up their game, then so be it. That is what you do when you are a leader. And I think that's what Lamar Jackson is all about. One quick story. I'm walking down a hallway. I'm on the Ravens radio, and I have clear access to a lot of things in the building. And as I'm walking by, I see one of my former Syracuse alum, and Art Jones, who was the defensive tackle for the Ravens in their 2012 Super Bowl season. Well, I'm walking down, and obviously I see him. I'm like, hey, man, last couple of weeks, bro, you've been balling. Like, wow, that's some good stuff. And he kind of smiled. He goes, I don't know what it is, but I think, Ed Reed was walking down the hall and kind of passed me. He goes, in Ed Reed fashion, he goes, hey, man, what you doing, man? We need more from you. And when he said that, it just hit me different. And so for me, I kind of just felt like, wow, Ed Reed is telling me to step up my game. I better step up my game. That's Art Jones, who had a very pivotal role in the success of them beating the San Francisco 49ers, of them taking care of business at Denver in the Mile High Miracle. For them to take care of business, period, to hoist up the Lombardi, Lamar Jackson has to step up his game in all aspects as well, and not just sit back and say, hey, I'm going to lead by example.
Now, the reason that I'm bringing up this leadership and his answer from Kevin Hart Q for Lamar Jackson is the fact that Lamar's words were twisted here by Jason McIntyre, who was filling in for Colin Cowherd on the Herd. He brought up the fact, look, he played the clip from Kevin Hart in the show that Lamar was on. And by the way, if you haven't seen it, it is a very insightful and hilarious interview, yes, by the way. But he essentially said, Jason McIntyre goes, it's like when you're at a job interview and they ask you one of those questions and they ask you, what's your biggest weakness? And you say, oh, I have no weaknesses. And then Jason McIntyre says, quote, really? Leadership, you either have that or you don't. I don't think 5 years into the league, something snaps and you're a leader. Lamar Jackson's a quiet guy. He doesn't say a lot. Everybody's different when it comes to leadership. If Lamar Jackson was given truth serum before the Kevin Hart interview, he'd say, hey, man, I've had some rotten playoff games going to Buffalo. I couldn't do anything. This year in Baltimore, I started slow. And it's like, yeah, Mark Andrews. I see the drops on the screen. It's not all on Lamar, Jason McIntyre said. He needs to become a different quarterback in the postseason, and that's not a knock. It's just reality. 3-5 in the playoffs. That, to me, is his weakness. I don't want to hear this leadership nonsense. First of all, Lamar was not asked what his biggest weakness was. It was his most difficult adjustment. There was no weakness talk here from Kevin Hart or Lamar Jackson. But I think this is pretty disrespectful, Q, because it's essentially discounting Lamar's growth as a leader and saying, no, Lamar can't have grown as a leader because you don't do that. You either have it or you don't, which I just think is ridiculous in the first place. And Lamar Jackson has actively taken responsibility for not being up to snuff in the postseason. He does not go up there and say, hey, man, I played great, but, man, this Mark Andrews guy, look at it. No, he doesn't do that. He says, hey, you know what? This is a team sport. We win as a team. We lose as a team. Lamar Jackson he's the last guy who would ever throw anybody under the bus like that. He's the last guy that would not acknowledge his shortcomings in game. He has taken blame for things that are not his fault in a game. And Jason McIntyre is going up there and saying, yeah, well, if he was given a true serum, he would really say, he's already said all of it. Like, he's already taken responsibility. This is not like some gotcha moment here for Lamar Jackson. He is as genuine as they come, and he will admit that and acknowledge it. But to come at him as a leader and say, nah, you either have it or you don't. And Lamar's a quiet guy. Clearly, he has not been watching the transformation queue. That's what I have to say about that.
It's interesting because guys like him, clearly from a sports athletic realm, it's a zero-sum game. Either you do it or you don't. And in the corporate world, business world, it takes a minute for things to develop, or you can get personalities that aren't necessarily star people, but yet somehow they step into some dog doo-doo, and now whatever their project that they were working on, it worked. From a leadership standpoint, in particular with football, his leadership is a show me style, and you can see it, and you saw it, and guys responded. I think this is another iteration of his leadership as far as servant leadership. The servant leader is the one that is going to go up to his teammates and try and talk with them, pick their brain, help them understand where he's coming from, as opposed to just a leader that's like, man, y'all, hey, what y'all doing? And pointing fingers and trying to motivate them through a level of fear. So I think Lamar is showing great servant leadership by saying, hey, watch me. I'm going to go out there and do it. And now also I'm going to also verbally encourage you to make sure you're watching me. So when we all go out there, we can all do it. Lamar is in a unique situation where he's just a superior talent. And I think that superior talent, it's easy for guys just to be like, don't worry about it. But other guys can't do what you do. And so I think for him, it's getting other guys to step up their play and up their game by going out and talking to them. Has nothing to do with whether or not, you're born a leader, or you got it or you don't. Or, Lamar has plenty leadership as far as taking accountability so many times that, I don't understand the guy's comments. I guess he was having a slow day, and his producer and him must have been kicking around some kind of way of having a clickbait type show.
I mean, look, it's one thing to talk about Lamar's playoff failures and say, he hasn't been up to snuff, and that's fine. But Lamar also, he has had good moments in the playoffs. It hasn't been what the Ravens have needed from him in terms of winning games for the most part, but he also has won games. It's a group effort. It's a team effort, and that's been Lamar's message. It's like, I'm a part of this, right? I have to be better. He has always said that, and that in itself is being a leader. So it was ridiculous to me. And, I had to bring it up because I didn't want those comments to go unchecked and just, Lamar's not like that. And so that's why I wanted to dive into it. But coming up in the second part of the show, are the Ravens starting to flip this rivalry back to their side after a couple of years of the Steelers getting the last laugh? We talk about that and a lot more coming up next on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. And whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm a part of the action. And so, for me, I'm an Orioles fan, right? This is Locked On Ravens. I'm an Orioles guy, and hasn't been the year that anybody was anticipating in Baltimore. Right now, if you're over on FanDuel, the Orioles World Series odds plus 21,000. It is, look, if you're feeling spicy and maybe believe in the Orioles, maybe that's something you're interested in. But I know it hasn't been the best year for the Birds. So if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Back here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail still talking with you here on this Thursday edition of the show. Appreciate everybody for being here today. Q, it was a long couple of years of the Steelers getting the better of the Ravens in these games. I mean, you could even go back to last year, that first game where Derrick Henry has the early fumble on the first possession. Justin Tucker misses a bajillion kicks, and the Ravens lose that game 18-16. Just felt like the Steelers had that, and that was true. The Ravens just could not get over that hump for the last 4 or 5 years. Well, we saw the last 2 games they played in Baltimore was a lot different looking, because usually, Q, those games can be close. They're hard fought, physical. Ravens just absolutely blew them out in both those games, including in the biggest one, which was the wild card game. Do you think, Q, the rivalry is shifting back towards the Ravens? Is this one where, the Steelers had their time, they were winning the games, and now is it time for the Ravens to take control again? Is that what you're feeling?
Man, I hope I'm feeling it correctly, because I'm tired of all my friends telling me how great their Steelers are, and my nephew sitting there sending me messages. Ha ha. Yeah, the last 2 games you saw what it looked like when the Ravens put it all together. No drop passes that are just sitting there, and no guys coming off the edge untouched and Lamar getting hit from the blind side. No, well, we hope Tyler Luke can kick it through the uprights. It's going to be interesting, because when you go to Pittsburgh, I mean, that's a different animal, whether it be a primetime stage or an afternoon game. Like that whole, surface and the air and all that kicks are different. So hopefully we'll figure it out. Whoever the kicker is, hopefully it's Tyler, and we'll see. But the bigger picture, yes, turning point. Let us say it right now. Super Bowl or bust, it goes through Pittsburgh, and we talking about spanking them and getting them into a position where they're crying mama, and we are sweeping them. So I like that. I like the idea that Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback. Like the idea that they got some DK Metcalf and some other players that are some bona fide players, because ultimately I think it'd be great for the Ravens, and Steeler Nation can't be sitting there making, well, we don't have, but no. Y'all got what y'all got, and y'all got y'all butt whooped. Yeah, the flock, we are here. We are ready for you.
How do you think Baltimore matches up with the Steelers in terms of personnel? I mean, we've talked about Aaron Rodgers, Q, a big tell or a big draw to him and his game is his mobility and getting out, escaping things and making the next play. But, he is up there in age now. He is very up there in age. And part of that part of his game has decreased a little bit. Baltimore's defense is fast. They are physical. They have talent all over the place. They trade out DK Metcalf or George Pickens for DK Metcalf. They trade out Minka Fitzpatrick for Jalen Ramsey. I think they're going to be that team that's maybe a little thorn in the side, right? Mike Tomlin always has his guys ready to play. But I feel like, to me, right now you have an opportunity for Baltimore to really flip this rivalry on its head, particularly because I think while Pittsburgh improved a little bit off their acquisitions, it's different than if they had kept George Pickens alongside DK Metcalf or kept Jalen Ramsey alongside Minkah Fitzpatrick. Like that to me is where I'm hesitant to believe the Steelers will be able to get the better of Baltimore in dominant fashion this year. I think it will be flipped for Baltimore side of things.
And so the word is team chemistry. And what you see from the Ravens, and Marlon Humphrey said it so well. You talk about leadership. I appreciate his leadership and how he's kind of, felt more of a serious, hey, we got to get this done. And it can't be just all about Lamar Jackson. It has to be about everyone. Who's everyone? Us over here on the defense side of football. We didn't create turnovers for Josh Allen. Josh Allen, when we needed to get him off the field, we couldn't do it. And so back to the Steelers, I think that mentality of holding one another accountable and doing what we need to do is going to pay off dividends. The Steelers, on the other hand, TJ Watt, whether or not he gets signed and when it gets signed, I mean, yes, he's a mainstay. He's a staple, and he will provide some settling leadership. But Aaron Rodgers is new. DK Metcalf is new. You got a new rookie running back, and so can Jaylen Warren, hold it down until the rookie gets his feet wet and understanding what he needs to do in his role. You got a lot of new faces. I think Minkah knew the rivalry and knew the intensity, but at the same time, Jalen Ramsey, like, this is his first time they were saying he's playing in cold weather. All right, you're playing Baltimore in December. So how is that going to all work itself out for yourself? I think those are things from a chemistry standpoint they got to work out, whereas you don't have to work it out if you're the Baltimore Ravens. Pretty much if you go down their roster, there's only one or two guys. Jaire Alexander, he's going to pretty much just sit back and watch and observe and say, all right, cool, this is how they do things. When you look at Malaki Starks, like Malachi's going to be like, okay, I get it. I understand. Here's how I gotta do things. Our offensive line already went through the battles of here's how I gotta do things last year. Ultimate chemistry leads to victories. Therefore, I think for the Ravens, they're in the advantage when it comes to the sweeping of the prediction that I'm having over the Pittsburgh Steelers.
There are a lot of different ways the Ravens can assert their dominance, for lack of better words, over the Steelers this year. And there were actually some comments about the Steelers, Q. Pat Rooney, and we know that Rooney name carries weight over there in Pittsburgh. Now, Patrick Rooney Jr. is not affiliated with the Steelers. Apparently, he is a first cousin, though, of Art Rooney II. He disagrees with Pittsburgh's strategy with going all in, which, again, Q, we know is very unlike the Steelers. He said, quote, for whatever reason, there's been this narrative around the Steelers like we're going to go all in this year. What does that mean? Do you think even if you had Aaron Rodgers from 10 years ago, you'd be able to compete with Joe Burrow and you're going to be able to compete with Lamar Jackson? The whole key to the NFL is winning your division. That at least gives you a chance to get to the Super Bowl. What does it make you think you're going to be able to compete with Baltimore and Cincinnati? Cincinnati's defense is terrible, but their offense is light years ahead of us, and Baltimore is just a better team. And I think they finally realized if by kicking the crap out of us in the playoff game last year, they are going to steamroll us this year. Do you think that's the right word? Is steamroll the word you would use here? Like, is that where this rivalry is? Got to respect the Steelers, and, the Ravens and Steelers have similarities, but steamroll is a strong word, Q.
Homeboy is using some Jedi mind trick. Like, this is the AFC North. And yes, the Ravens and Cincinnati, they got into a shootout both places, and it came down to a play here and there. Obviously, Tyler Wallace got us back in the game when it was here in Baltimore. Clearly, from a simple toss pitch to the outside and watching Derrick Henry rumble down the sideline and set up the go-ahead winning field goal. I don't see the Pittsburgh Steelers Ravens contest as it just being a one-sided affair. I see us winning. I just don't see it like we're just going to mud stomp you and, we're going to beat you a gazillion to nothing. Like that's some Jedi mind trick type thing. I think Leslie was quoted when he was at the bar and had a couple in him. I think that's what that was, some psychological warfare going on.
Well, Patrick Rooney Jr. also called the idea of paying TJ Watt absolutely insane. So, hey, you know what? Pittsburgh, if you want to move up with TJ Watt, I'm just going to say it first. Ravens Nation, the Ravens fan base, everybody would welcome that idea. So, hey, you know what? If you want to trade him, I think you and I are in agreement that we will be okay with that. I think we'll be okay with that. So
that's a good decision. I think that's a really good decision. And what the heck? Like, why not? Y'all don't need them. Y'all should just, hey, who cares? Like,
yeah.
What has he done for you guys? Nothing.
We can use some Jedi mind tricks of our own over here on Locked On Ravens. So look, the Steelers, they're always going to be a team that will be tough for the Ravens. They're physical like the Ravens are. John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, we know those two were connected. But I do think that the rivalry is shifting back into Baltimore's favor. And while it might not be blowout after blowout after blowout, I do think that the Ravens will come out on top in a lot of these games, just based off where the roster is right now. Coming up in the fun part of the show, Q and I will do a general outlook for 2025 as we head into training camp. Again, just a couple of weeks away. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot coming up on the show. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher, Qadry Ismail, still talking Ravens football with you. Q, we've heard all the talk about how good this Ravens roster is. We've talked about it ourselves. It is very, very good. And this opportunity for the Ravens to win a championship when they have squandered multiple good opportunities during the Lamar Jackson era, 2019, 2023, and 2024. Does this year feel any different to you? Even just like the vibes and the mindset around the team where we know they've gone through plenty of revenge tours, right? I'm tired of the revenge tours. I want them to just get it done. No more fuel to the fire. Just get this thing done. But we've heard messaging similar of like, hey, we want to win the Super Bowl. We haven't done well enough in the playoffs. But you and I have talked about a lot of different things where Marlon Humphrey's talking about, he wants to get this defense back to that 2000s defense level. And I know, Q, you being a part of that team and you knowing what it took to get to that level, them having that defense with this offense would be probably an automatic Super Bowl win if they can get there with the postseason success. But is this a different mindset that you felt over the last couple of years for Baltimore this year? Or do you think it's kind of similar in the fact that they're hungry, they want to win, they're going to do everything in their power to do it?
Well, I think, the word talk is cheap is what comes to mind. I think that they're tired of talking. It seems as though when they say, different phrases or terms, it gets spun out of context. I think for this Ravens ball club that is a veteran ball club, again, you got a generational talent in Lamar Jackson. Defensively, like I'm telling you, Zach Orr and his staff, I think they're going to just be able to push the right buttons to get those young players and vet players to just like, boom, lock in. I think from a rebounding effect, I think, Roquan Smith is going to, grow off of what he did latter part of the year and kind of erase some of the feelings of inconsistency that he had in the first part of the year. I think it all started in the offseason when they signed Ronnie Stanley. He was the cog that said, hey, you know what? We can do this thing. And sure enough, here he is. Obviously, they got Derrick Henry, Hall of Fame credentialed running back. And again, you got Justice Hill, who I think is a phenomenal Robin to his Batman. And then, you got, Nightwing, who, if he does what he does, Keaton Mitchell is going to be that, bona fide opportunity to be a home run threat. There are pieces there that really just say, let's play. Defensively, you got the pieces and some young guys, Mike Green, Malaki Starks, some really good vet players, some young dudes, the Nate Wiggins / C.H. Chavez of the world that are coming into their own. type of vibe, yeah, you don't have a Hall of Fame kicker. Whereas you got a young player that we're going to see. We're about to see what's what. Outside of that, you got a long snapper and a holder that knows how to be the good, strong rhythm for whomever is going to be the kicker. So it's all right there before them. The biggest thing, the elephant in the room for every 32 teams in the NFL, it's health. Who's going to remain the healthiest come the end of the season? That's the big thing.
Yeah, and I want to round out the show with this, Q. I talked about this earlier in the week, where the difference between being the hunter and the hunted, the favorites versus the underdogs, the 1 seed versus the 4 seed. And I know you, Q, were a part of a 4 seed team that went on to win the Super Bowl. Do you prefer this version of the Ravens to be the favorites, to have that target on their back, or to be the underdogs? Or do you really think it doesn't matter? Because I know there are a lot of fans on both sides of this coin and both sides of the conversation. Where are you on it?
Used to be, oh man, give me being the underdog. Let's go. But I think this team needs to have the fire lit under them from day one. And now that the fire has been lit, teams are going to be gunning for you. So let's go.
Yeah, 100%. So the Ravens, big expectations this year.
All gas, no brakes.
That's how it should be, and they have the talent to be the favorites and still win. So hopefully they can do it this year. But Q, I appreciate you for hopping on, talking Ravens football with me. Thank you for joining. Tell people where they can find you and what you're working on, because as always, I know you are staying busy.
Yeah, man. It's missiletraining.com. It's where you can communicate with me. Locate missiletraining.com for all your human movement and sports performance needs. I think when it comes to human movement, it doesn't matter your age, whether you're 6 or 85. Anywhere in between. If you have ailments, if you have restrictions, we can look to help you move better in a more efficient manner. At the same time, if you're a team, if you're an individual, we got you covered at Missile Training. Go to missiletraining.com. And of course, WJZ. You can find me on all my Purple shows. Purple pregame. We're going to have a little something new for you coming up. Excited, I should say, to announce what those new additions are going to look like for our shows. And then, of course, we got our squad, our Ravens squad show that you'll see Kevin Oestreicher and I, but Locked On Ravens. Every week, Kevin Oestreicher and I, right here, we sit back, we talk Ravens, we talk shop with you, getting you ready for Super Bowl or bust.
All the links to Q's work in the description down below. And of course, you'll see Q and I back here later tonight on the Locked On Ravens channel doing the Ravens squad show with Sam and Joku as well. So be sure that is our new show, Monday and Thursdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, alongside the regular Locked On Ravens show, which is still Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. But appreciate everybody for tuning in. We'll be back here later tonight, so be sure to stop in for the squad show. And then, of course, we'll be back here tomorrow for the regular Locked On Ravens program. So hit like and subscribe on YouTube, follow along in video form and audio form, and I'll see you right back here later tonight on Locked On Ravens.